Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video I want to be telling you everything you need to know to take down Sirus, Awakener of Worlds, all the way up to Awakener level 8. So Sirus is one of the most controversial bosses they have ever added in Path of Exile. He has a lot of unintuitive mechanics and really wacky abilities which once you figure out can be quite easy, but without the knowledge are quite frustrating. So I have finally been able to kill him deathless, and I would say that I have him completely on farm at this point, and I have taken quite a long time to do so, so don't feel bad if you've been dying a lot as well, I have too. But over those deaths, I have learnt how to counter every single one of his mechanics, and I'm about to give you all the secrets and tips you need to finally take this guy down effortlessly. So to begin with, let's get into the fight. So of course, once you enter the arena, this is the first point that people kind of come unstuck. Once you get in there, of course, this all looks very familiar, and I'm sure a lot of you see some comparisons with your own runs. So you jump in here, you go into Oriath. Now what do? A lot of people aren't sure exactly where to go or how to start the fight. So to do that, all you need to know is at any point when Sirus is in the air, the only way that you can engage him is by getting directly underneath him. So in terms of how to actually find him at the start, he will always be in the same position, and I recommend that you follow the exact route that I go here because it is the quickest and safest way to get to him. So come out of the door, move through the two Chaos Storms, dodge the one on the left, and then come straight down and you'll find him channeling one of his abilities, his Death Beam attack. So jump straight underneath him, and that is how to start the fight. So you'll see here that he'll do his last ability that he has queued up, and then he'll come straight down. Now, there's something very important to notice here which is definitely not apparent when you kill him or fight him for the first few times. When he comes down, he spawns a massive ring around him. Now, what is this ring? I can tell you that it's one of the most important mechanics of the fight, and it's definitely not explained at all. So this ring is basically his arena or his circle of influence, and this ring is an area of safety for you from the Chaos Storms. So the rule for this ring is that no Chaos Storm can chase you inside this ring, and no Chaos Storm can exist within it. So you'll notice that there is actually a Chaos Storm within this ring over here. That is actually violating that rule, and it will be pushed out of the ring, which you'll be able to see happen here. It's like, oh, I'm in the ring, I'm getting out of here. So that Chaos Storm is out of here, and we're able to take him on without any storms in our way. So those are the first two critical mechanics that you need to know about Sirus: how to engage him and how to create the spawn of influence, and it pushes storms out. That is critical information, and now with that you're already a lot of the way there to taking him down. So there's a few more mechanics that you guys are going to want to know about. Now, I'm not going to go over all the mechanics in the fight due to the fact that some of them are pretty kind of like inconsequential, and they're just bits of chip damage and a bit of fluff. But there are some that you absolutely need to know about and how they work. So the first one that you need to know about is the long wall attack, and we'll skip some footage so I can show you exactly what that looks like here. We're going to go ahead and take a look at that. It's around here. So the long wall attack is a massive ability which a lot of people have been having a lot of trouble with, and you'll see it coming up right here. This is attack which Sirus does, and it basically spawns two impassable walls around the player, and generally those go way off the screen, and sometimes the end ends in a Chaos Storm, meaning that you feel very trapped and you're not sure what to do, leading to some untimely deaths. While you're within these walls, Sirus will fire projectiles on alternating sides of the wall, so it's basically a two-column kind of thing. You can choose to dodge these left, right, all that kind of stuff like that, or you can completely choose to nullify the mechanic with this technique here. So you'll see that I just dash straight into him and the wall vanishes and he completely stops doing the ability. Basically, when he does the long wall attack, all you need to do is directly dash in or out of the wall through Sirus himself, and it will completely nullify the ability and lead to him no longer doing it, making it a complete joke of a mechanic, and once you know the trick, it's completely easy and a no-brainer indeed. Very, very cool. So next up, I want to talk about the Meteor Cage, and for this one, it comes in different stages. As you progress through the fight, it's going to go from a 1-layer Meteor Cage to a 2-layer Meteor Cage to finally in phase 2 a 3-layer Meteor Cage, but all of them are very easy to counter, and you have ample time to get out of them as long as you know what you're looking for. And I'm going to be telling you exactly what you're looking for right now. To do that, I'm going to show you the most extreme example when there is a 3-layer Meteor Cage and what to do in that situation. So we're going to jump all the way to 425 here. and you will see that 3-layer meteor cage. So let's go into it. Here we go. Here is the meteor cage. So you'll notice that the meteor cage is quite large here. It has many layers, and the actual exits to these, which you can see marked here, here, and here, are random. So you could have a very easier meteor cage or a very hard one, but you definitely have enough time to get out of them. Don't worry, I've had some pretty BS ones, and I've always been able to get out of them in time. But what are you looking for? How can you identify those exits? So the exits are always clearly marked with these sparks here. You can see that I'm just able to quickly identify, oh, sparks here, here, here. All I have to do is go like this and I'm out. And that's all you're looking for with the meteor cage. And after you understand that, you're able to get out very quickly and very easily. Never get hit by these, and it's going to be an easy mechanic. Another one, easy like to do. And you can see there, I just smashed that wall again. Too easy indeed. So that is pretty much everything you need to know about phase 1, bar one extreme mechanic. Of course, the notable, the almighty Chaos Storm. We need to talk about it. We need to talk how to counter it. And there is actually multiple ways to do so. Now, let's get into the game, because I do actually have the Sirus arena up, because I wanted to show you guys exactly how to deal with this, because it's a very difficult mechanic to kind of get your head around at first. But once you do get the idea, it's very easy indeed, and it uses a combination of all the mechanics in the game. So you can see this is a cleared Sirus arena, but the first step to understanding the Chaos Storms is understanding the actual arena. So you need to understand how the arena looks and how big it actually is. So you can see here that it's actually a pretty big arena, but once you get into the arena, it's already got about 5 or 6 Chaos Storms in it, and those are very important to understand where they are, where you can move, and kind of how you can kind of like get around the arena. So to begin with, obviously there is actually going to be a Chaos Storm around 2 here, and then there's going to be 1 around here. So that's very important. The first strategy to dealing with Chaos Storms when he spawns them is to bait them away. You can basically lure a Chaos Storm away from Sirus himself. Chaos Storms have a mechanic which is as follows. When they're created by Sirus himself, they will always follow a player when they come into range. That is not true for existing Chaos Storms, so like when you start the fight, basically Chaos Storms which exist before you get into the fight will never chase you. They will absolutely never interact with you at all, and you don't have to worry about them one bit. So those are never anything to worry about. They're basically just terrain which you can't interact with. You don't want to go near them, obviously, but they'll never kind of like come and get you. However, that is not the case for the ones Sirus spawns. The Sirus spawned Chaos Storms will always chase you, no matter if they've been like kind of like pushed away or they're near you. All the time, they will always come after you unless you're in the sphere of influence of Sirus himself. So you need to make sure that you put these storms in a location where you're not going to go ever again in the fight. That is absolutely critical, and it is very important to your success. So now that we understand a Chaos Storm created by Sirus will always chase you if you go near it, we need to make sure that we're putting and baiting these into locations where they're not going to have any effect on you in the fight. Now, why are we actually doing this? The reason that we're actually baiting these Chaos Storms away is for the following reason. The reason and the whole idea behind the Chaos Storm mechanic is that Sirus becomes pretty much untouchable during it. Let's just find a Chaos Storm here. We got one at 118, and I'm going to tell you exactly why and what we're doing. Most people go into the Chaos Storm phase without much purpose and without understanding what they're trying to doing. They're just trying to move a storm around and they're not really sure what they're trying to go at. So obviously here we have the Chaos Storm phase. Basically, our objective when he spawns the storm is to get the storm away from him. It doesn't need to be all the way to the side of the room. It doesn't need to be in a certain position. It just needs to be away from Sirus in a location that we're not going to go in again. So here I'm choosing to bait the storm over to this left hand side, and all I'm thinking about is how quickly can I get that storm away from him and back to him and spawn the circle of influence again. That is all I'm thinking about, and that's exactly what you'll see me do. So I'm going to get in range here. Actually, my skeletons are pulling it over here, which is, you know, it's whatever, but the skeletons are kind of baiting it over because they're minions. Definitely a disadvantage of a necromancer here, but you can see the storm's coming towards me. It's definitely following me, and it's coming over, of course. But I'm going to put it right over here. It's definitely in a position where I don't plan on coming again, and it's going to be just fine there. And as soon as it's away from Sirus, absolutely, as soon as it is, I'm back in there, man. I'm going to go back in there, and you can see that I know that there's a little slipstream up the top there. Make sure you remember that. Make sure that that's an escape route for you. You can always go up the top there. So then I'm back to Sirus, and I'm going to do exactly what I told you guys to do. I'm going to spawn that circle of influence. It's going to push Chaos Storms further out and back into the fight. That's all you need to do with the storms. Now, obviously, I need to give you more detail. I need to give you some more information about these storms, how they work, and there's a lot to them. So to begin with, let's say you have a storm chasing you and it just keeps chasing you and chasing you and chasing you. The key to stopping a storm from chasing you is to get it off your screen. As soon as the storm is off your screen, it will no longer chase you. It de-aggroes you, it's not going to touch you anymore. It's over there until you go and get it back on your screen, and then it will begin chasing you again. So any storm that's off your screen is basically immobile, it won't come and get you. So that's absolutely critical information to have, and that is going to be how you can kind of run away from them. Now, with all that information out there, you're going to have to do this about 3 times. 2 to 3 times kind of like is probably the minimum. Basically, Sirus will do one minimum at around 50% and then minimum again at 30%. And you will get additional storms in there depending on how low your DPS is. So that's definitely pretty good information to have. The more DPS you have, the less storms you'll need to deal with. And that is absolutely a fact of the fight. And I think it's fine as long as you pack a bit of DPS. So I think the good amount of storms to shoot for is 3. That's kind of manageable. Any more than that, it does start to get quite messy. But yeah, that's pretty much baiting the storms and luring them. That's all you need to know about that. Now, there is an alternative here. If you're not playing a summoner with skeletons, you can use this alternative. And I will tell you exactly how that works now as well. It is definitely a little bit less 100%, and it is more RNG. But I will give you the heads up here on how to do it. So basically, let's assume I don't have skeletons in this situation here. No skeletons. Basically, the storm would actually just stay beneath Sirus. And obviously, that's a stalemate at that point, isn't it? Because we can't get to Sirus to bring him down, and the storm isn't chasing us. So actually, in the game, there is actually kind of a mechanic that starts to happen. Sirus will start to drift away from the storm, and the storm will start to drift in a random direction. So it kind of gives you a scenario where you can quickly jump underneath Sirus and push that storm out with the circle of influence anyway. So that is definitely a mechanic that you can use to your advantage, and all you need to do to trigger this is to make sure that you're constantly engaged with Sirus while keeping the storm at a distance where it doesn't aggro on you. So a good distance is about here. Basically, if Sirus is starting to fire his abilities at you, you know, the death laser, the meteor volley, all that kind of stuff, and the storm isn't chasing you, there's a good chance that this is going to go well for you, and the storm is probably already moving away from him. Upon that happening, just jump underneath him and the storm will be pushed away. However, there is a disadvantage with this type of strategy, and the disadvantage is that you do not decide which way the storm goes. It kind of goes in a random direction, and that very well may be towards the door, breaking your fight potentially and leaving you with a big unhappy kind of feeling in your stomach. Definitely not great. So I'd recommend baiting the storms away intelligently, and that is kind of my strategy, and that is what you'll see in the rest of this video. Now, obviously, with the storms, we need to know where to put them. That is absolutely critical information, so we'll get into that now. I'm going to assume you have 3 storms here, and I'm going to tell you where I choose to put them. So the first storm, or first storm location you have, obviously it will depend on the fight and kind of how it's going, is I would choose to put one around about down here. And then you can quickly dash back up here, dash around here, and then get back into the fight over here. Kind of around like that. You'll understand that kind of movement when you actually do the fight because there is chaos storms in the way, but that is kind of my strategy there. The next one I would put either down here, just over here, and then jump back over here, or you could choose to put it over here, but I would not recommend that. So first one over here, next one down here, and then of course the last one I would choose to put all the way over here. Keep in mind though that this one you put down here will start to follow you, but that is fine. You can then run around up and around here and then back into the fight. And that is kind of like how I do the storms. You will see that in the full video, and that's kind of like how I'm looking at doing it from kind of like all my experience here. That's with 3 storms. So you'll have one here, here, and then here. And of course, the 4th one, that starts to get a bit fishy and a bit hairy, so you definitely want to be having him down by about 3, otherwise it's going to start looking a bit messy. So definitely I would look at that. Never, ever, ever, ever put a storm up in this top area though. That is an absolute no-no. That will completely break your fight. Never go up there with a storm chasing you either. It's better to die down the bottom or something like that with a storm than go up here with a storm. It's never worth it. It can completely ruin your fight. Make sure that is a rule ingrained in your brain. So, enough talk with storms. After you get Sirus to 30%, that's when the fight continues. And after you obviously master storms, it's pretty easy to get him to that point as well. So, phase 2 at 30%, what's going to happen? So on the transition to 30%, he will do a storm phase. So that storm phase should be your third and final storm of the fight. Bait that away, come back, get underneath him, and what will happen? He'll go into phase 2. Phase 2 has a brand new suite of abilities, as well as inheriting some of the old ones. So what is he going to do here? The first few abilities I want to explain are abilities that he had before. He will still do the meteor cage, but it will be a 3-layer meteor cage, as I showed you. Just look for the sparks, you'll be fine. Next up, he will also do the long wall attack still, but we all know that's a joke now. Just charge into him, it's going to be easy. Next up though, he has 3 new abilities, which you guys definitely need to be watching out for. They're all pretty deadly, and they all can come with a few cool tactics to get into. So the first one we're going to take a look at here is the Clone Boy Spinner, I've called it. So this attack is one where Sirus duplicates himself and creates some kind of like environmental effects. You'll see it coming up here. He creates 4 clones of himself. He starts channeling it. Basically what this is going to create is a kind of spinner in the arena, and it's going to make like kind of degen beams that if you walk into them are going to do damage to you. Now these don't do a ton of damage. As you can see here, I'm just dashing through them. All I would say is just don't stand in them. That's all I can really recommend, but it's pretty negligible. But it is important to note that's what he's doing there, because that is one of the opportunities if you identify the right clone to obviously get in there and do some damage to him. So very, very key information there indeed. The next one you guys need to know about is the Beam Volley. So the Clone Beam Volley is the first one we're going to talk about, and it is back here. He did it just before, I believe. Let's take a look here. Indeed. Okay, maybe it's not there. We'll have to jump forward a bit. Yeah, this is it here. So this is the Clone Beam Volley. Basically, Sirus is again going to create a ton of clones of himself. I think he creates about 10 or 12, and one of them will be correct, so you can DPS him in this phase as well. But what he's going to do is start locking onto you, channeling his beam, and then eventually he will fire it. So in this phase, all you need to do to dodge this attack is constantly be moving around the arena in like a circlish pattern, and obviously once he eventually lets it off, he will have targeted onto you and it won't hit you, just like there in that ability there. So that is 4 of the 5 abilities that he does in phase 2. The last ability is by far the most dangerous and the one that actually took me the longest to figure out, and that is just the normal beam volley that he does. I'm going to show you guys what this looks like and how to counter it as well. So just coming up here, it's about 522. We can see, okay, that was it there. So we'll just pause it here. So the actual normal beam volley pretty much always takes place after he does the clone beam volley. So he does his clones and then he'll shoot that off. And then right after that, he will teleport in a random location and then fire another beam volley. Now this beam volley does an absolutely incredible amount of damage. It does about 7,000 per hit, and it does like 4 or 5 volleys. So if you're not sure this is coming, you're pretty much dead every time. Every 100% time I die to this, and until I figured out how to counter it, it was going to do me every single time. So how do you counter this? And I'll give you a quick look at what it looks like. It's very, very simple. So here it comes. He's going to probably teleport away. Okay, he didn't teleport that time, but there you go. So how do you deal with this? So as soon as he comes out of that multi-clone phase and teleports away, all you need to do is look for him immediately. Dash around, flame dash to him, make sure you're right near him. And as soon as he starts channeling it, he's actually going to only be able to fire it in about a 50 or 60 degree kind of radius. So think he targets here, and then it's going to be bing, 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 bing. So if you're right next to him and you're moving around him in a circle, he actually can't possibly ever hit you unless you do like a full 360 around him. So that is how you counter it. All you need to do is get right next to him, get right on him, make sure you know where he is at all times, and that's a pretty good rule of thumb for phase 2 anyway. Just make sure he's always where you know he is, make sure you're always on him, make sure he can't beam volley you at any time, and you're going to be so safe, it's ridiculous, and you're going to be able to take him down. And that is all there is to the fight. There's no chaos storms in phase 2. As of phase 2, as long as you can put it near the door, you don't have to worry about storms anymore at all. So that is Sirus, Awakener of Worlds, down. You're going to be able to kill him without a doubt, without any issues, and it's going to be super duper easy. So with all that said, I'm going to give you guys a few final pointers. So obviously to get this down, you need some amount of life. You're obviously going to want a little bit of a buffer. You can see that I did dip quite low to like the 3k range ES. So you probably do want 5 or 6k life with some mitigation in there if you can. I've got 10k ES, no mitigation, so that kind of makes it fair. So if you have 6k life, with mitigation, you're probably like really sweet. So definitely recommend that. The more damage you have, the less storm phases you have. That's definitely a really big plus. You can probably get it down to 2 storm phases with a lot of damage if you're playing something like a miner. Of course, if you're playing a summoner, be wary that your minions will actually bait the storms to you. So definitely keep that in mind, as it does kind of create some shocking results sometimes. So you do need to keep that in mind, and it will probably rule out the passive kind of strategy of letting Sirus kind of drift away from the storms. That's probably not going to be a possibility for you. But with all that said, you shouldn't need too much gear for this. I've just got like a 6-link and some general zombie gear. This is basically my mapping gear. I don't have anything crazy like a crafted weapon. I'm just using my zombie scepter and a 6-link gem swap from zombies. So it's definitely not a hard fight once you get your head around it. And with all these tips, I hope you guys get him down, and let me know if you do. I'd love to read some comments of some people finally getting Sirus down, because while it is one of the most controversial fights, when you finally get it, there is nothing more satisfying than getting that rush of adrenaline and that feeling of elation. So with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.